Revenge might feel good in the moment, but the real power lies in forgiveness. Stories exist that prove it can transform lives and even alter history. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts in human life. It's not about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of anger and resentment. Throughout history, countless acts of forgiveness have shocked the world, inspiring millions and changing lives. Today, we're counting down 10 stories of forgiveness, so powerful, so astonishing, that they make you rethink what it truly means to forgive. 10. Nelson Mandela forgives his jailers. Nelson Mandela is known worldwide as a symbol of courage and resilience. But one of the most profound aspects of his story isn't just surviving 27 years in prison, it's what he did after he walked out. Mandela endured harsh conditions, cruelty, and inhumane treatment during his imprisonment under apartheid. He could have returned to South Africa with a thirst for revenge, seeking justice through violence. But he chose something different. Instead, Mandela forgave his jailers. He embraced reconciliation and used forgiveness as a tool to unite a fractured nation. He understood that hatred would only continue the cycle of violence. By forgiving the people who wronged him most, Mandela was able to become not just a leader, but a peacemaker who prevented a civil war and guided South Africa toward a democratic future. Why? It's shocking. Forgiveness at this level isn't just personal, it's political. It changed the course of history. Expanded storytelling include anecdotes of Mandela visiting former prison guards, speeches emphasizing unity, and quotes about reconciliation. 9. A mother forgives her child's killer. Imagine the pain of losing a child to violent crime. Most parents would seek justice, or perhaps revenge. Yet some choose a path that seems almost impossible: forgiveness. One such story comes from Canada, where a mother met the person who took her child's life. Instead of hatred, she extended compassion, telling him he was forgiven. Her choice wasn't easy. She experienced grief, anger, and despair every single day. But through forgiveness, she found a way to heal, showing that forgiveness isn't about the person who wronged you, it's about reclaiming your own life. Why it's shocking. Forgiveness in such a personal, tragic scenario challenges everything we instinctively believe about justice and revenge. Expanded storytelling, add dialogue, her emotional journey, societal reactions, and reflections on how forgiveness reshaped her life. 8. The Amish school shooting in 2006. Tragedy struck a small Amish school in Pennsylvania. A gunman entered the school and killed 5 innocent children. The world expected outrage, grief, and a thirst for revenge. Instead, the Amish community shocked the world by publicly forgiving the shooter. They visited his family, comforted them, and spoke openly about reconciliation. Their response wasn't instinctive, it was deliberate, rooted in their faith and belief in nonviolence. By choosing forgiveness over hatred, the Amish taught the world a lesson in compassion and humanity. Why it's shocking. Forgiving in the face of such profound loss defies our natural instincts and demonstrates a level of moral courage rarely seen. Expanded storytelling, add interviews, news clips, emotional reactions from the community, and reflections from survivors. 7. Malala Yousafzai forgives her attackers. Malala Yousafzai, a young advocate for girls' education, was shot by the Taliban simply for wanting to learn. Most people would never forgive such a direct attempt on their life. But Malala didn't just survive, she forgave. She publicly stated that holding anger wouldn't help her mission. Instead, forgiveness allowed her to continue advocating for education and peace. By forgiving those who tried to end her life, Malala turned a story of violence into one of empowerment and hope. Why it's shocking. Forgiveness became a tool for activism, showing that even in the face of terror, compassion can lead to change. 6. Forgiving a mass murderer. Rwanda's Gacaca courts in 1994. Rwanda suffered one of the most horrifying genocides in history. Over 800,000 people were killed in just 100 days. Families were torn apart, villages destroyed, and trust annihilated. In the aftermath, the country faced a choice: revenge or reconciliation. And what emerged was a story that shocked the world. Rwanda implemented what are called Gacaca courts, community-based justice systems designed to bring survivors and perpetrators together. Families who had lost loved ones were confronted with the people responsible for unimaginable atrocities, and in many cases, these survivors chose forgiveness. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting the horrors or excusing the crimes. It meant reclaiming life and hope in a country that had been consumed by hatred. Some survivors testified about feeling immense relief and liberation after forgiving, even hugging those who had harmed their families. It was a radical act of courage that set an example for the world. Why it's shocking. The scale of forgiveness required on a national societal level is almost impossible to imagine. Millions of people choosing reconciliation over revenge is a profound demonstration of human resilience. Expanded storytelling includes survivor quotes, historical context of the genocide, descriptions of the Gacaca, and emotional reflections. 5. Terry Fox's journey. Forgiveness of circumstances. Terry Fox, a Canadian athlete and cancer patient, became a global symbol not because of athletic prowess but because of his unshakable spirit and grace in the face of suffering. Diagnosed with osteogenic sarcoma, Terry had one leg amputated but refused to let his illness define him. Instead of anger or resentment toward his disease, Terry embarked on the Marathon of Hope Across Canada run to raise money for cancer research. Throughout this journey, he forgave the circumstances that had befallen him and used his energy to inspire millions. His story proves that forgiveness doesn't always have to be about a person. Sometimes, it's about forgiving life itself, the unfair challenges, and the hardships that could have easily broken us. Terry's choice to focus on hope rather than bitterness transformed not only his life but also the lives of countless people who followed his journey. Why? It's shocking. Forgiving circumstances instead of people shows a different form of power, the ability to turn suffering into positive action. Expanded storytelling described the journey, interactions with supporters, quotes from his speeches, and the emotional impact on Canadian society. Closing parenthesis 4. The Christmas Truce of 1914. Forgiveness amidst war. World War I is often remembered for its brutality, trenches, barbed wire, and unimaginable loss. But in the midst of this horror, a remarkable act of forgiveness emerged on Christmas Eve, 1914. Soldiers on both sides of the conflict laid down their weapons, sang carols, and even shared gifts and conversations with the enemy. For a brief moment, soldiers forgave each other not in words, but in actions. They were enemies who, just hours before, had been trying to kill one another. Yet in that moment, they chose humanity over hatred, camaraderie over cruelty. Why? It's shocking. Forgiveness amid the brutality of war demonstrates that even in humanity's darkest hours, compassion can emerge. These soldiers risked punishment by their superiors to embrace peace, showing the sheer courage and moral strength behind forgiveness. Expanded storytelling described trench conditions, first-hand accounts from soldiers, letters home, and historical reflections on this extraordinary act. 3. Immaculée Ilibagiza, forgiving after genocide. Immaculée Ilibagiza survived the 1994 Rwandan genocide, hiding in a small bathroom for 91 days while her family was brutally murdered outside. The odds were stacked against her, and yet she lived. But survival was only part of her story. Instead of succumbing to hatred, she made a conscious decision to forgive. She spent years coming to terms with the horror she had witnessed and eventually wrote best-selling books about her journey. She now travels the world, teaching the power of forgiveness, even in the face of extreme trauma. Why it's shocking. Forgiving after losing almost everything, home and community, is a level of compassion that most people cannot imagine. Her story proves that forgiveness can be a transformative force even in the face of extreme suffering. Expanded storytelling include her personal quotes, reflections on her faith, the process of coming to forgiveness, and her global influence. 2. The forgiving prisoner, restorative justice in action. Sometimes, the most unexpected acts of forgiveness come from the least expected people. In one case, a man wrongly convicted of a serious crime chose to forgive the witnesses who had falsely testified against him. Instead of succumbing to bitterness or seeking revenge, he offered compassion and understanding. His decision sparked discussions about restorative justice, showing that healing can be more powerful than punishment. By choosing forgiveness, he not only liberated himself from anger, but also inspired the wider community to consider the deeper meaning of justice and empathy. Why it's shocking. Forgiveness coming from someone who had every right to hate demonstrates incredible humility and moral strength. Expanded storytelling include court context, personal reflections, media coverage, and societal impact. 1. Forgiving yourself, the ultimate form of forgiveness. Perhaps the hardest forgiveness of all is forgiving oneself. Many people carry guilt for years, haunted by past mistakes. But stories exist of people who reached a breaking point, realized the weight of self-blame was unbearable, and finally chose to forgive themselves.